What you are listening to now is the Central Indiana Sports Report podcast number 334.2, our weekly IndyCar report with Elijah Poe. This week, as the series heads to Laguna Seca for round 14 of the 2025 schedule, we talk about driver and track news for 2026. We have some news on that, and we talk some rumors as well. Elijah and I will be back on Saturday with a recap of qualifying and a race preview for Laguna Seca.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengel.
Elijah, we are going to preview the silly season coming up here, talking about the drivers and where everyone could land starting next year. Got a lot of interesting items there. I've been seeing quite a bit, and then you said you've gone team to team, and look forward to hearing about that. But before we get to that, Elijah, a lot of rumors coming out this week about next year's schedule. It looks like Denver is going to be added, as we already knew that Mexico City was. But there have been about 6 others thrown out as possibilities that are not on the schedule right now. Let me just throw them out here real fast. Pocono, Richmond, Homestead, Phoenix, and Kentucky as possible ovals. As if they Denver in 27, it looks like you're going to have to add some ovals as well. Elijah, your thoughts, where do you want to see them race, and what are you hearing?
Well, I think as easy as it sounds, I want to see Indy cars get back to oval racing. They've got in the road courses and street courses they've got planned out. Denver's going to be a great race. We have Arlington next year around AT&T Stadium near Dallas. That is just going to be an awesome race. But yeah, IndyCar fans and myself personally, I want to see them back on an oval, and I think the opportunity to be back at Richmond would just be great for the sport. The big question is, are they going to market that for themselves? Because they're really going to have to market it. You see what they did with Iowa this year, really lacked on marketing, and you saw it in the stands.
No doubt about it. Iowa's one that I really hope stays on the schedule. We should do one race, a night race in Iowa, and IndyCar needs to just promote it if Iowa won't, if the Speedway won't, if whatever the city doesn't, the Speedway just needs to take care of that. I would really like to see Iowa. It was a really good racing this year, but here's the bottom line, Elijah. I think a lot of people used to say ovals are mandatory because they were so much better racing than the street and road courses, but I'm not sure that's the case anymore because the street and road courses are incredibly entertaining, and adding Denver and Austin and Mexico City, that's just good news.
It is good news, and I agree with you that the street package and what they do have is very very strong, and in recent years it's proved to provide some great racing. But I would counter back and say, if I was IndyCar, why would I not want to show off another thing I am the best in the world at, and that is oval racing?
Because nobody shows up.
Well, yeah, but going into 2026 to only have 3 speedways, for locked on, we know they're going to be at St. Louis, Milwaukee Mile, I guess 4 with Nashway and Indy. But something that is so unique in what makes IndyCar is that they are racing on an oval. If you keep on getting rid of these ovals slowly, the racing's still going to be there, but what is going to differentiate you from
Right.
a Formula One? I
It
just
would
don't
just
think the
be
gaps
American.
are there.
It would just be American Formula One, and honestly, it would probably start to become full of Europeans because that's what they specialize in. There are a lot of good reasons to have ovals, but as far as entertainment goes, I think the street and road courses have been great. Here's what I'd like to see, Elijah. Richmond, I don't think you're even old enough to remember a race at Richmond. Man, those were fantastic races. And Phoenix, oh, those short ovals are both so good. Just for the racing, I would love to see those.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. The only problem is it comes back to NASCAR owning those tracks, and Penske Entertainment and the IndyCar series as a whole would have to promote those by themselves. And you really saw them fall short, especially this year at Iowa, and seeing those stands so empty. And it's a real shame because there are so many things the drivers could do. Iowa, close to Iowa, it's not real close to the speedway, but I know there's a couple famous dirt tracks and smaller tracks. There's no reason why drivers can't be going out there promoting IndyCar, and then in return, those drivers and those fans are going to see the IndyCar drivers there, and they're going to want to go to the IndyCar race. We could go on and on about marketing, but it's just such a big question if Penske and IndyCar as a whole is going to step up and market this sport as us fans and journalists think they should.
How about this, Elijah? Phoenix on Super Bowl Sunday, right before the Super Bowl. See, these are the kinds of things that market themselves. They need to be thinking more like that.
It's the unique opportunities that they're missing off on.
Yes.
And we see great viewership numbers as well, even when they tie into NASCAR. I've got no problem being an IndyCar fan if all of IndyCar, that race is there to do is set up NASCAR. I don't care because
No
eyes are going to
problem at
be on the
all.
sport.
Yeah. I'm going to be watching the IndyCar race and then ignoring the NASCAR race, and that's fine.
Exactly. And that's going to bring viewers in from both sides of the spectrum. And I'd be interested to see what Fox does with their schedule next year. Obviously, this season the Fox schedule was really crammed tight because that deal was done so late. So maybe hoping in the next year that we're going to really see this schedule be worked out well and have times where you can set up viewership numbers.
Here's what we know before we get to the driver silly season, Elijah. Here's what we know about next year. It starts February 27th unless they put something before St. Petersburg. Actually, March 1st is the first race. February 27th, the first practice. We know they're going to race around Cowboys Stadium on March 15th. It's going to be very cool. We've seen that, of course, with Formula One. Then Long Beach, and then Indianapolis. So they need to get serious about adding races between February and May, and that's perfect for Homestead. That's perfect for Phoenix. And Richmond, you could probably do in April as well.
Yeah, I'm hoping they're going to capitalize on some oval momentum because I think IndyCar fans in the series is too quick to forget just how great a race we had at St. Louis this year at night. Why isn't IndyCar doing more night races on short ovals? That race was absolutely fantastic, had more than a
Fantastic.
million views, and it was perfect. And it's a shame they didn't have more of those this year, but fingers crossed the next year.
Elijah, they can make their own marketing by smarter planning with the schedule.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm also hoping that they're able to kind of learn off the schedule this year. Like I said, it was so last minute and kind of thrown together. I'm really hoping they're able to learn from their mistakes and get this off the ground and running as smooth as it should be.
The good news about next year's schedule is if Mexico goes where we expect it, which is between Arlington and Long Beach, it'll be no more than 2 week gaps between races, even starting next year with having St. Petersburg on March 1st. And I think that's a really good thing. You do not want to lose minimum pre-Indy.
No, and to think we had 2-3 week gaps
Mm.
before we got to Indy this year, it was just moving around like a snail. It was really just sluggish, and you knew IndyCar started, but they only had 2 races, and now you're waiting 6 weeks total before you get to the third race. It's just
Next year's schedule looks great otherwise. All the things that have been confirmed, we're for it.
absolutely, and
There's
I
not a
can't
bad
wait.
one on there anymore.
Yes, and I'm so excited to see them at Arlington. You just know Dallas Cowboys, the cheerleaders, the Rangers are involved. I'm really excited to see the marketing for that and see what that race can turn into because I think that could be one of the marquee events of the 2026 season if they're able to pull this off right, which all signs are pointing to yes.
All right, let's look at a little driver silly season. The one thing I think about this off season, Elijah, is it looks like most seats are filled. A lot of times at this point, we're still asking a lot of questions, but especially at the top teams, we know that Scott Dixon and Alex Palou are going to be with Ganassi unless Palou darts for Formula One, which isn't likely. We know
Yeah,
we know two of the three Penske seats. We know, we know a lot of that, but there are still a lot of questions.
I think the first domino of the silly season that has to fall in order for this to get really started is going to be, where is Will Power going to be
Power.
for next season? And much like Alex Palou a couple years ago, I think that Will Power seat will really be the first setting move to try to get these other seats in line. And obviously, Will Power has been in talks about maybe returning that seat for 2026. But it also would not surprise me or others as well in the paddock if David Malukas makes that step up to Penske.
If Will Power returns to that seat, we could see a pretty consistent field from this year to next year, right? There's not going to be a lot of changes, most likely.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine there's gonna be not this season's not quite as mixed up as years past, because you've got those three Arrow McLaren drivers, they're locked in. The three Andretti drivers, they're locked in. Meyer Shank Racing, Felix Rosenquist and Marcus Armstrong locked in. Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan, they've got Graham and Louis Foster locked in. And surprisingly enough, I was looking at the contracts. Devlin DeFrancesco is signed through 2026. Do you think there's any chance DeFrancesco returns to RLL next year?
I think there's a chance. I think the chances are a lot less likely than they otherwise would have been. We know that, how do we say this nice? He's not unprofitable having him in the seat. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had such good rides without proving himself. That's the
Yeah, you're not
nicest way
wrong.
I'm going to put that. I don't want to
Yeah.
say that he's a seat buyer because I don't believe those exist anymore. If you're not competent, you're not racing. I can't see why you would want to bring him back, but I think there's a really good chance he's back.
So do I. And Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan is an odd team. Obviously, Ray Hall has been so ingrained in that program for multiple years now, and I look at Louis Foster, who's no doubt a rising star in this sport, and he really reminds me of Christian Lundgaard. Christian Lundgaard obviously got his start at RLL, and Louis Foster is in his rookie season had some great performances. Obviously, stuck it on pole at Road America and has been racy here and there. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Devlin. Obviously, you've got some good rookies in Indy NXT with Dennis Hauger, who's won 5 races and 9 starts, who's no doubt ready to move up to the IndyCar series. So that would be interesting to see how RLL plays that as you head into the offseason.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with Jacob Abel and Coin too, because that is a slot where you would think that either one of those young guys from the minor league series or somebody like Linus Lundqvist, who is clearly a talent and is a driver who's going to be in demand. They got to land somewhere. And with Roman Grosjean likely at Juncos Hollinger, where else are they going to land?
Yeah, it's unfortunate with Linus Lundqvist. You also think of Teo Pocher, who ran really well last year in the IndyCar series. We've got some great drivers on backup, but man, with these contracts, I'm not sure I remember a silly season where everything is so locked in. Obviously, I say it's locked in, but in racing, contracts are pretty much, a napkin. They're not worth too
Sure.
much.
Yeah, but there are not a lot of combinations where you say, I think they should move on from that. That doesn't fit right. It seems like, even Schwartzman and Eilot have fit in really well with Prema. It just seems like you mentioned Meyer Shank. They really like their lineup. Of course, I'm not so sure that Marcus Armstrong isn't one of those guys who's going to be looking to move up.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about Marcus Armstrong as I do about Renus VK. And it's unfortunate because VK's had such a strong year, but I'm not sure how he can move up. With the seats that are locked in for this year, I think VK's best option is to stay at Dale Coyne Racing. And honestly, if he's able to put in another year of consistency at Dale Coyne, I think teams will be throwing him bags of cash in 2027, because the things he's done this year is if he's able to do them again or even have half the results of this year, that'd be just an incredible result for them.
And I missed this in notes here. Go back to Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan. There are rumors that Yuri Vips and Teo Porcher and Zane Maloney all are in line for that seat. So no, I do not see D. Francesco coming back. And of course, Louis Foster is cemented now in that seat, in one of the
Yeah,
three.
I would really like Teo Porcher to end up in that seat. He really only got a handful of races to kind of get acclimated to IndyCar, and he was thrown in the car a couple of times last minute, which is you're never going to have a strong result when you're just thrown into a car last minute. So him having a real full season to develop and get his bearings underneath, and I think he'd be a great spot at RLL because they've got some pace at some circuits around the IndyCar series, and I think he could perform there, and I think he'd be a great teammate, especially to Louis Foster.
All right, Elijah, we turn our attention to Laguna Seca, another incredible permanent road course that the IndyCars have made just a great event. And it's a race that last year Alex Palou and Andretti Racing were really at the top. Is that what you expect this weekend?
I don't think Alex Palou has been off the podium at Laguna Seca for quite some time, and he's so dominant as it is. But Laguna Seca specifically seems to really fit his eye well, and as long as those as well as those Chip Ganassi racing cars. And Laguna Seca is just such a great IndyCar track. You've got the corkscrew, sand is everywhere. The racing is always great, and it's another track where I'm confident I can say, I'm pretty sure we're going to have a good race. And we've had a good race almost every week this season, and we might be a little bit spoiled.
We are a little bit spoiled. I don't think there's ever been a season this far into it in my entire life where you thought, oh man, every race has been good. I thought we were in for a couple of bad ones at Iowa. Those turned out to be really good races. Again, not as racy as they used to be, but still very compelling races. And ever since Thermal, which we've had just chosen to forget ever happened, it's been an incredible season. It all starts Friday at Laguna Seca, Elijah, with NXT practice at 1 p.m., which is what, 10 a.m. or 10 a.m. out there. And then IndyCar practice is at 2 on Saturday. Qualifying for the IndyCar series is 11:35 to 1 p.m., which out there again, really early in the morning. I don't know how many people are going to show up for that. And then the race is at 3 o'clock on Sunday. What a great part of the schedule this is, Elijah.
It is. And closing out our fifth race in July, it's been such a hectic month for IndyCar as a whole as they wind down to their final month in August. And just been great races in whole. Had a doubleheader at Iowa, Mid Ohio, St. Louis, Road America. It's been just a really full and packed month of
What a
IndyCar. And
great one so far.
yeah, it's just been absolutely packed, and it's been great to see. And to think we've had these great races and great storylines, and the biggest thing we don't have is a championship, a real championship battle. And to think how great this season's been, and nobody's really talking about that championship battle, it goes to show you how great the racing's been because we don't have to talk about how close things are at the top because the cars are doing the work for themselves on the track.
Elijah, let's talk about the championship battle. Alex Palou is 99 points ahead of Pato O'Ward. You and I agree that this race is over, but do you think it will end more or less than 100 points at the end of the season?
I think it'll be less. I truly expect Arrow McLaren to follow and mimic Palou's strategy for these last few races, just in case maybe they can get a blocker and help Pato's strategy. I think it'll be less than 100. We got a couple ovals coming up as well. Palou's not been the best. He obviously just won at Iowa, but compared to Pato, I think Pato has him there. And it's IndyCar. You never really know with these results. I wouldn't have thought Alex Plo would have ended up in 12th after his result and start at Toronto, but he did. It's just unpredictable. It's just part of the sport, and I can see Pato maybe closing it into maybe 60, maybe.
If it gets within 60 with 2 races to go, then, a guy like Palou could have bad luck 2 races in a row. Right now, you're asking him to have bad luck 5 races in a row. That's probably just too much. Elijah, you and I will talk about the race at Laguna Seca on Saturday after qualifying. We will go through the qualifying results and preview Sunday's race. And of course, after Sunday's race, you and I will get on the Riverside app again and talk about round, is this 14 out of 18, and the busiest July in IndyCar history.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. Just seeing cars at Laguna Seca, it's such a beautiful track, and seeing them go around and race, it's one of the best we see on TV every year. I call it one of the best TV tracks, you might say. But really excited and looking forward to that race, and can't wait to talk about how things play out this weekend.
Thanks so much to Elijah for joining the Central Indiana Sports Report. I always love talking IndyCar racing, always have. And it's been a lot of fun getting to know Elijah and talking IndyCar racing with him 2-3 times a week at this point. And thank you for listening. Please share this podcast with the IndyCar fans in your life. Help spread the word that the Central Indiana Sports Report is here, is awesome, and is here to stay. Thank you so much. Always appreciate it. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.